Hi, I'm Jeannie.
And I'm Danny.
And we are Beauties and the Podcast.
Hi, welcome back to Beauties and the Podcast. In this episode, we will be breaking down and discussing the 1950 classic of Walt Disney's Cinderella. Cinderella was produced by Walt Disney. It was originally released by RKO Radio Pictures. It is based on the fairy tale Cinderella by Charles Perrault. Sure? Mm-hmm. It is the 12th Disney animated feature film. The film was directed by Clyde Geronimi.
Yeah, something.
I think it's Geronimi. Mm-hmm. Hamilton Lusk and Wilfred Jackson. Mac David, Jerry Livingston, and Al Hoffman wrote the songs, which include Cinderella, A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes, Sing Sweet Nightingale, the work song Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, and So This Is Love. Cinderella falls under the classic princess category. Her name is French for Little Ashes. She is around 16 to 19 years old, but it's not specified. It's supposed to take place in France. We'll get into that later. And she obviously gets married at the end.
Yeah.
If you don't know this, then
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
You should know by now that you should have watched the movie before you start listening to this.
Absolutely.
All right.
So we're going to get into the movie breakdown.
We start off with Cinderella's gold book, and as it opens, we see 2 mice on it and 2 little birds and the pillow with the glass slipper on it, and we'll learn about those characters as the movie goes on. There is a chateau and a man with his daughter, and the narrator explains all of this, that he remarried a woman who has 2 children, and then the father unexpectedly dies. Mm-hmm. The chateau falls into disrepair. The stepmother spends all of the money. She resents Cinderella and forces her to live in a tall tower and act as a servant. That's when we zoom in and we see in the tower, bluebirds are waking up Cinderella. Her window is at the top of this castle. She can look out and see everything, or at the top of the chateau, she can look out and see the castle. Mm-hmm. And she is talking about a dream that she just had, but she can't go into any detail because if she does, it won't come true. And then we hear A Dream is a Wish plays the classic. I don't know. I think that's the most classic Cinderella song, everybody.
I think it's just the most classic Disney song as well.
Possibly. It's up there with Pinocchio's Wish Upon a Star.
Yeah, I think both of those are one of the most well-known Disney songs just in general.
Yes. So the birds and the mice are waking her up, and she's brushing her hair, and they are listening to her talk, and she's helping to wake them up, and the clock strikes to wake everyone up. She's mad that the clock orders people around and telling her what to do. And the bird makes her bed, and she showers using a sponge that the bird wrings out.
That made no sense to me.
It's so heavy, they can't pick it up, first of all. Second of all, you got hands. What's your problem?
Third of all, there's enough water to shower in one sponge.
Sure. It's a big sponge. Did you not see it took 17,000 birds to lift it? There's also a really nice picture. I'll find it, and maybe we can link it underneath, showing the live action of the actress doing it next to the animated version, and it's pretty cool. So the birds and the mice lay out her clean clothes, and there's a mouse in red. His name is Jacques, and he's talking about a visitor mouse. And Cinderella gets clothes for him. Well, first thinks it's a girl, and then Jacques,
oh my goodness,
Jacques
yes.
no. She's like, oh, she's gonna need a dress. He's like, it's a boy. Mm-hmm. So she learns that he's in a trap, and she runs downstairs to help the mouse. She tells Jacques to explain things to him for her, and he comes out of the cage, and she dresses him up, and the shirt is too tight. It's because he's a little chubby mouse, and it comes
He's
up.
fat. He's
Yeah,
not,
he's
he
so
is
cute.
fat.
He's my fave. So she's like, you're just gonna have to do with it, and he's just so happy. And she names him Octavius, but Gus for short. And Jacques warns him of the cat Lucifer, and he's like,
Lucifer.
yeah, have you ever seen a cat? And he's like, oh, and then so Cinderella goes down to her stepmother's room to get the cat, because the first job is to take care of the cat and feed it.
Yep.
And Lucifer is not having it. She yells at him to come to get breakfast. The mice are talking about him, and Jock warns that Lucifer is mean. Gus is like, I'll get him, and he's like,
Like,
pretend like he's gonna
fight this cat.
fight him. Oh my gosh, so cute. Cinderella goes downstairs with Lucifer, and there's the dog Bruno laying on a carpet, and he's having a nightmare. Cinderella wakes him up. She knows the dream is probably about Lucifer, so the cat and dog fight all the time, and Bruno gets sent out because when she wakes him up, she's like, were you going after Lucifer? He's like, bad dog. Or she goes, did you catch him? Yeah, bad dog. And then Lucifer's there, and then they bicker, argue, whatever, and Lucifer initiates things. He's the one who...
Yeah, he like cowers down on his back and like goes to hiss and claw at him, and Bruno gets defensive, and she yells at Bruno.
Oh yeah, and then he throws himself on the floor and pretends that Bruno is like hurting him, like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So poor Bruno gets sent outside, and Lucifer gets his milk. He's just a mean cat.
He's a fat cat.
He's a fat, mean cat. But Cinderella does, like, make a dig about him, like, oh, like, there's such good qualities of Lucifer. Well, I can't think of any.
I'm sure there must be something nice about him, and the look that Lucifer gives her is
she's so polite, but at the same time she's saying little digs the entire time, like, it's not my idea to feed you first.
She's very snarky, and she's like, your majesty.
Yeah. I love it.
So she goes outside, and it's breakfast time, obviously. So she's got like what looks like corn for all the chickens and the horse, and all the mice are super excited because it's their breakfast too. So they try and go run outside, and as they try to get out of their hole in the wall, you see Lucifer's blocking the door as he's drinking either his milk or cream, whatever he is drinking. So they want to try and figure out, okay, who is going to distract him. So then they're like, okay, tails in. Everybody butts together, tails in. And Jacques kind of like reaches behind him, picks out a tail. Everybody jumps. He jumps. And then all of a sudden he realizes that when everybody's like...
They're all
waving at him.
They're saying, like, 2 or 3 of them are waving, like, bye-bye. And then
he realizes
Gus is shaking his hand, like, congratulations, good job, you're the one that won.
He's got his own tail. So he has to be the one to distract Lucifer while all the other mice go to get some breakfast. So he goes out and he kicks Lucifer's elbow.
Yep.
And his face drops because his little head's being held up. He's kind of like just laying on his stomach, holding his head up with his other paw. And he kicks his elbow, and his face plants the bowl of milk. And Lucifer like tries to figure it out, and then as he's trying to run, the mouse is trying to run, he's like got like a rooster tail of milk that he's just like kicking into his face. And then Lucifer chases him into, there's 2 holes on the other side of the wall with a broom in the corner. So all the other mice are free now, so they can all go out for food. And as she's putting down food, all the mice are hurrying up, grabbing like 1 or 2 or 3 pieces. And the chickens, Gus doesn't know what a chicken is apparently, because the chickens eat the rest of the food before Gus can get any. So then Cinderella shoos them, hands out more. And then Gus tries to take 9 pieces.
This is why he's fat.
He is so fat.
He's so cute.
So as the mice are coming inside, one of them dropped a piece, went to go back and get it, and is like, no, sorry, you don't have time. Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted to, but I can't. And then Gus walks past it and is like, oh, I can grab a 10th piece. He goes to grab it and then drops all 10 pieces and they go flying.
Yeah, because he's got him like propped like between his chin and his hand, like in a straight, so that when he bends down, it just
it's all
pops off the side.
Well, as that happened, Lucifer heard. So then Jacques sees this and is like pulling his whiskers, trying to pull other fur, trying to distract Lucifer again, like, hey, I'm right here, come and get me. But Lucifer's like, oh, there's a mouse right there that, he's a fat one.
And he's a lot fatter, he's got more food.
So Gus is picking up his 10 pieces. They plop all over themselves again, picks them up for the third time, and realizes, oh, well, if I open my mouth and put the top piece kind of like hold that in by my mouth, my arms can reach down to hold the bottom of these 10 pieces, and somehow it gets it. However, it's too late. Lucifer gets his tail. Like, he throws his corn. Lucifer has him trapped by the tail, and Jacques, who's right next to the broom in the corner, tips the broom down and hits Lucifer with it. And as soon as Lucifer comes back to, he sees Gus climbing on top of the tablecloth.
Yeah. He's like, oh, good, he got away.
Or so you thought. So he's on top of the table. He is actually on a platter, kind of leaning up against a empty teacup. And then Lucifer somehow gets to the table and gets him, like, picks up the teacup, and Gus falls into it and slams it down. So now Gus is trapped under a teacup. Poor Gus. It's a rough way to start his morning. So
his new life, this is all new to him.
Yeah, he gets a name. Well, he just knows that.
He's like, I got a name, I got a shirt, here's free food. Oh, I'm getting trapped by a cat, I'm gonna die.
Yep. So all of a sudden you see these 3 bells that are attached to strings. They're ringing, and you hear 3 women yelling for Cinderella, like screaming they need something. So this is actually, it's kind of interesting. It's like an intercom system that they have, that are the sisters, the 2 stepsisters and the stepmother, that they have to let Cinderella know, like, hey, we need you. I mean, it's kind of cool, the system that they have. They're being kind of mean about it. So she's like, yeah, I know. So she has to hurry up and get their morning tea or whatever all done in entrees to take up. So we know that Gus is hidden under one of the teacups. Lucifer knows, and then all of a sudden, like, everything just kind of gets mixed around. And as it gets mixed around, Lucifer loses track over which one Gus is under. Quickly figures it out. However, by the time he could get back onto the table, because Cinderella is pouring milk, pouring tea, and all this other stuff, getting breakfast ready. By the time Lucifer can get back up to the table to get the mouse, Cinderella has taken all 3 trays and she's heading upstairs. So Lucifer goes and thinks he's going to be really sly and is going to be at the top of the stairs, so that when Cinderella passes him, he's just going to take the teacup, because he's like, oh, he's under the one that's going to be closest to me. He doesn't calculate that Cinderella loses her shoe for the first time, and she turns around, so the tray that would have been on Lucifer's side is now opposite him, because she turns around to go put her shoe back on. So when he lifts the teacup, there's nothing there. She goes up, she hands Drizella her breakfast. Cinderella comes back out with a load of laundry. She goes into Anastasia's room, drops breakfast off, gets laundry, and then goes to the stepmother's room, drops off the breakfast, picks up laundry, and heads out. And at this time, Lucifer's just hanging outside of the stepmother's door waiting for something. Then all of a sudden you hear Anastasia screaming for her mother, and Lucifer's face is just so happy.
He's like, I found it!
So she runs out of her room. As she runs out, here comes Gus running out, and Lucifer catches him. Anastasia runs into her mother's room. Drizella runs into her mother's room. And Cinderella goes to Lucifer, and she knows, so she like picks him up by the scruff of his neck, and she knows he's under one of his hind feet. She's like, lift your foot. He lifts one. She's like, and now the other. Eventually he kind of lifts it, and Gus just kind of, he runs, but he runs into his foot over and over and then runs out. He's not the smartest. He's really not the smartest mouse.
No, it's creepy. He's cute looking.
Oh. So the girls walk out of their stepmother's room. They're like, boy, are you going to get it? She is called by the stepmother to go into the stepmother's room. She goes, she tries to explain and is told to hold her tongue. And on top of all of her other chores, the stepmother gives her way more chores.
Yeah, she's like, you have time to pull pranks?
Yeah.
Well, then you have time to do these.
So now she has to do the drapes, which she already did, but she has to do them again. Clean out the garden, scrub the terrace, all the mending, the sewing, the laundry, and she has to remember to give Lucifer his bath, which Lucifer was not keen on. So after this, we go to the castle. The king is mad. He's yelling. He's not happy. He is upset that the prince needs to find someone to marry, and he needs to settle down because the king wants grandchildren. The duke is trying to calm him down, and the king is not having it. And he's like, well, we're just going to have to arrange the conditions for him to meet a girl. The prince is supposed to come home that night, and the king wants to put on a ball for that night.
Yeah, last moment. Hello.
And they want to invite every eligible maiden that is not only invited, but they have to attend. Like, it's a mandatory, like, if you're an eligible maiden, you have to attend the ball that night.
Yeah.
So if you have plans, scrap your plans.
Too bad. Which, I mean, whatever their plans were compared to possibly marrying a prince.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Hopefully you have something to wear.
Yeah.
So then we go back to the little chateau, and Sing Sweet Nightingale plays.
It's one of my faves because it's so ridiculous.
It is absolutely ridiculous. So Drizella is singing it, and Anastasia is playing the flute, and Drizella is... Oh my goodness. Can't sing. Singing lessons will not help her, obviously.
No, this is not her skill.
No, so they're singing it, and then all of a sudden we go downstairs, and as Cinderella is washing the floor, she is also singing it much better.
Very beautiful.
Which is when in a few of the soap bubbles, like, she looks at her reflection in one of the bubbles, and then all of a sudden we see some more bubbles, and there's the only hidden Mickey in this film, which is in the bubbles. There's 3 of them together that have her reflection in them. And then we see Lucifer go to the steps, and there's a dustpan full of just dust and dirt that she had already picked up before washing the floor, because she's scrubbing the floor. And then all of a sudden you see Lucifer just dancing and jumping along the floor.
Such a jerk.
With dust and dirt on his little paws. Now there's dirty paw prints all over, and Cinderella sees this and is like, you are a monster. So there's a knock on the door. Cinderella answers it and is handed this notice of the ball. And she's like, should I go interrupt the music lesson? I'm not supposed to. But this is urgent. This is an urgent matter from the palace, so we need to. So she goes upstairs and she knocks on the door, interrupting the music lesson. And everyone's mad. But then she's like, but this is an urgent message from the king. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, really? Okay, let's read it. So the stepmother reads it, and she reads that, every eligible maiden needs to come. And all of a sudden the girls are just, oh my goodness, we need to go get ready. Like, we need this, we need that. And then Cinderella's like, oh, well, then I can go, right? Because by royal command, every eligible maiden is to attend. And the mother's like...
The girls are freaking out.
The girls freak out. They're like, no, she can't go. And then Cinderella's like, well, if I get all my chores done, can I go? And the stepmother's like, if you get all your chores done and the extra chores that I gave you earlier, for the mouse, if you get all of that done, then you can go to the ball. And Cinderella leaves. The stepsister's like, Mother, did you hear what you just said? And she's like, I said if. And they're like, oh, if. That's never going to happen. So Cinderella goes upstairs to her little tower. She's at a chest, and she pulls out this pink and white dress that belonged to her mother. And she has this book that has different sewing patterns and other stuff on how to fix dresses and add stuff and make dresses. And she's like, okay, this is the idea that I have for this dress. And she plans on sewing it up and fixing it and making it beautiful. Well, as she tries to discuss that with all the mice and the birds, the sisters and the stepmother are all of a sudden calling her for something. So her dress will have to wait. So then the mice start singing Cinderella.
Jock is so mad.
It's one of my favorite.
I love that one. But he's so mad. He's like, every time she tries.
Yep. So as Cinderella is playing, they're talking about like how pretty much used and abused she is. She can't do anything for herself because she has to do everything for everybody else. And then, Jacques like, she's never going to go because she's never going to get done with anything in time. And then all of a sudden, one of the little girl mice is like, wait a minute, no, we can do this for her. Like, we may be small, but we can do this for her. So then all of a sudden, they tell Gus and the little girl mice tell Gus and Jacques to, listen, we'll leave the sewing to the women, go get the trimmings. So then we go to the sisters' room, one of the rooms, and they are scrambling. They're giving Cinderella different clothes, and they're complaining about how they have nothing to wear.
And why did they not get anything?
Anastasia's sash is old. She doesn't like it. Drizella's beads are trash. And so they leave, and Gus and Jacques are like, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Let's go get this.
Yep.
So they go and they're like, okay, we can get the beads and the sash. So they go, they get the sash. Lucifer is on like this little pedestal ottoman, sleeping. They get the sash. They kind of roll up into it, and they roll it to a hole. And as they get to the hole, Lucifer wakes up and sees what they're doing and goes to go after the sash, but they get it in the hole just in time. So now they just need the beads. So as they're at the next little hole next where they just exited, Jacques like, okay, we need to get those. So, and Gus, dumb. He's so like, cute. Ooh, beads!
He's so cute!
And as he's yelling for the beads, Lucifer sees what he's yelling at, runs, and sits on them with his fat little butt. So then, now they have to think of, okay, how are we going to get these beads? So Jacques walks out, trying to distract them, and as soon as Lucifer goes to get up, but then sees Gus coming out of the hole to get the beads. So Lucifer sits on the beads, scoots his little butt across the floor because Jacques is at like a sweater or something that has buttons on it, and he's using his teeth to cut the buttons off of this. So he's got a pile of just random buttons going on. Gus is waiting for the beads to come available. Lucifer makes his way to Jacques. Jacques puts one button flat on the floor and the other button like a pog, and he kind of has it sitting up on the very edge of the one on the floor, flicks it, the one on the floor skips upward, smacks Lucifer flat in the nose, and Lucifer gets off the beads and is now chasing Jacques through a pile of clothes. And then Gus gets the necklace and then runs, but is dumb because he trips and slides on the beads, and the beads go into the wall, and the beads break off. So now you've got random beads because the necklace is broken. So then you see Jacques coming out of the pile, and he somehow gets Lucifer to follow him through the sleeve of a shirt. So now Lucifer, who's a fat cat, is stuck.
Who's also kind of dumb.
He's an idiot too. He is now stuck in this shirt sleeve and is like slinking across the floor. And Jacques and Gus are trying to get these beads back, like in the hole of the wall. So they're shoving them on Gus's tail. Gus is putting, which is not a pretty picture. The thought was there to put it up, but it's a little too adult, I think. We're not going to go there.
Yep. Nope.
So they're putting beads all over, tails, hats, everywhere. So they finally make it into the hole before Lucifer gets there, and then they go back to help all the women.
Right. And then the mice and the birds, they all finish the dress. It's 8 o'clock. The carriages are going to the castle. A carriage comes to get the family of the mom and the stepsisters, and Cinderella alerts that the carriage is there and she's not going to go. And the stepmother's so smug. Oh, why aren't you not dressed? Oh, why are you not going?
So
Rude. The girls are happy that Cinderella's not going, so she goes to her tower and she just looks out her window at the castle. She turns around and she sees her finished dress and thanks the animals so much. They're so happy for her. She quickly puts it on, runs downstairs as they're leaving, tells them, wait, I'm coming. And the stepsisters are mortified.
Oh my goodness.
Like, they're so mad that she has a dress and that she's able to go. And the evil stepmother is just so calm and collected and notices that on the dress there are some things that look familiar. And so the mother starts off by being like, oh, this necklace, it really compliments it. Isn't that right? Asking Drizella about the beaded necklace. And then Drizella's like, wait, that's my necklace, you thief, and goes over and rips it off of her. And then Anastasia goes, oh, that's my sash, and rips it off the dress. And then they just start tearing the dress apart, even though the rest of the dress had nothing to do with them, which is obnoxious to me.
Yep.
So they destroy the dress, and Cinderella runs outside to the garden crying. The girls and the mother get in the carriage and they go off to the castle. And while Cinderella's in the garden crying, her fairy godmother appears. The mice are outside with Bruno and the horse, and the godmother says that she is asks if she's going to the ball. And Cinderella is saying no, she's not going to go. And she's like, oh, because you don't have, a way to get there. Okay, the first thing you need is a pumpkin. And she turns it into the carriage. And we hear Bippity Boppity Boo playing, and the pumpkin's turning into a carriage. Well, you also need an elegant coach. For an elegant coach, you need your horsemen and all the things. So she turns the mice into horses. She turns, which one was it? Jock into, like, the driver. Like, she turns all of them into a specific
No, they're
person.
all horses.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're right.
Gus hides. Lucifer tries to trap him. As the godmother is turning him into a horse, he turns into a horse. All of a sudden, Lucifer is on his butt.
Oh, that's true.
And then
I
he
forgot about
neighs.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. She also turns Bruno and the horse, the normal horse.
Okay. Oh,
They're
all
the
right.
other.
That's who it is. And then she's like, all right, you're all set. Here's your ride. You can go. And so Cinderella's like, I can't. Looks down at her dress, and her godmother's like, you can't go in that.
But the whole time, I laughed because the whole time, like, Cinderella's trying to tell her, listen, I can't go because of my dress.
Right.
And the first thing, she's like, well, the first thing you need is a pumpkin. And Cinderella's like, why do I need a pumpkin?
Yeah, that makes
Why
sense.
do I need the mice to go? Like, why do I need the dog? Why
Godmother's not all there, too, because when she first goes to start making stuff, she's like, where did I put my wand? Where is that?
Oh, yeah.
I forgot. I put it away. And it's, like, up her sleeve. So she's not, 100% with it. So she makes her a beautiful gown with the glass slippers, and she tells Cinderella, like, all dreams, this can't last forever. She has until midnight, and she sends her off. And Cinderella thanks her. She's so excited. She goes to the castle, and at the castle, the prince is greeting everyone as they call them in. The king and the duke are watching from above, and they're very disappointed. The king is. The boy is not cooperating. He's just being very polite, but he's not making eye contact. He doesn't care about these ladies at all. This is not... He probably wanted to come home and relax. He did not probably want to come home and have a big ball. So then Cinderella walks in. Drizella and Anastasia walk up by the prince, and leaves. The prince leaves them when he sees Cinderella, and they're like, again, mortified because they're like, who is that? They're so mad. He introduces himself to her, and then they start to dance. So this is the first woman that has walked in that has actually caught his eye and he cares about. So there is a recycled scene from Sleeping Beauty, and Beauty and the Beast is the same one that they use for Cinderella while they're dancing, which you can totally see that.
Yeah, it's not a well-known one, probably because they only show them dancing very short.
Yes.
Like, it's not as long as, like, Beauty and the Beast or Sleeping Beauty.
Right. It's not like
you could tell it's the same. All they did was, like, modify some colors and stuff like that.
So while they're dancing, the king says to be notified of any updates and goes to bed. Because he's like, all right, my son found somebody. That's all I wanted. I'm going to go take a nap. He leaves the duke to look on the prince and make sure that he finds out who the lady is. The sisters are also trying to figure out who the girl is. And the stepmother thinks she seems familiar to her. And so she's kind of being... inquisitive about looking and seeing, and then the one is part of my favorite parts is when the duke like drops the curtain right in front of her.
Right as the stepmother's trying to figure out who she is.
Yeah. So this is Love Plays, and the clock strikes midnight. She says she needs to leave, and the prince says, no, stay. And as she runs away, she loses her shoe for the second time.
And she also says that she needed to see the prince. She didn't know that he was the prince.
Okay.
Yeah, she's like, I need to go, and he's like, no, you don't. And she's like, I have to go see the prince, and he's like, the prince.
I am the prince. So she didn't even know.
She didn't know.
Got it. So the duke sends guards after her, and they're trying to follow her and get her before she gets away. She's trying to get away before the spell wears off. They turn back to normal. The mice, the horse, the dog, Cinderella turn back to normal on the side of the road, the pumpkin, and they almost get run down by all of the guards. She forgets about the time, and she didn't know it was the prince, and the mice figured out that she had left her slipper behind. So she's like, oh, well, at least I have this one slipper as a reminder of tonight, like a memory. So she thanks the godmother. It makes her happy that she has like a memento. Back at the castle, the duke is sweating it. Hardcore. Does not want to tell the king that he has lost the girl that he was told to keep track of. It's the only one the king's son has ever been interested in. He has the slipper that she left behind. So he goes and he talks to the king, and the king thinks he has good news. He's trying to give him cigars. He tries to knight him, but soon figures out that that's not what he needs to be doing.
Yeah, he finally tells him that she got away, And the king, like, the king is like, oh, what do you want to be knighted as? Like, what do you want your name to be? And he's like, she got away. And he's like, I dub you, she got away. And then the king,
that's a peculiar name to be knighted by.
He is mad. He is yelling. He turns red. The Duke reminds him, like, you got high blood pressure. You need to watch it. And he goes on, like, they are chasing each other. The king is trying to kill him with the sword. They end up
jumping on the bed.
The king's bed. They're jumping on the bed. As they're jumping on the bed, the Duke is like, the prince is determined to marry her. He wants to find the girl who fits the slipper. The shoe is the last thing we have. And, we need to figure out whose it is. So then the king is like, really? Okay, well, then this shoe needs to be tried on by every maid in the kingdom.
And they're having this conversation on this chandelier. Let's state that.
And the Duke is like, but what if this fits more than one girl? Because odds are.
You'll figure
and
it
the
out.
king is like, that's not my problem. That's his problem.
Right? Just do it.
Should have figured out who the girl was before she lost her shoe.
Right? Also, totally want that bed. That bed is amazing.
It's a huge bed.
It's huge.
So we go back to the chateau. Cinderella is already up in the morning, and shockingly, the stepmother is too. So Cinderella is ordered by the already awoke stepmother to bring up the breakfast because something is up. The sisters are still asleep, and so the stepmother goes to wake them up, and she tries to tell them that the girl from the previous night lost a slipper, and now it has to be tried on by every girl. The Duke is coming over to, from house to house for girls to try on the shoes, and the girls think that she's talking about, like, the Duke. Like, the Duke needs to find this girl. Right. And the stepmother's like, no. Whoever fits the shoe is going to marry the prince. And all of a sudden the girls are like, what? And it's so funny. Like, they're like, yeah, whatever. Who, the Duke? And she's like, no, the prince.
And she's like, don't screw this up again. You already screwed it once for me.
So she's like, all right, so one of you could marry the prince.
So she kind of is like selling her daughters off just because she's used all the money from her previous husband.
Oh, yeah. So they all of a sudden are woken up. They're panicking because they need to find out stuff to wear. They're throwing laundry at Cinderella, who Cinderella has heard all of this and is kind of in a daze.
Yes.
And, the girls are like, listen, we don't have anything nice to wear. How come all the other girls have nice things to wear? We don't have anything. And Cinderella is just in a daze. And then she just kind of throws everything that is in her hands, including the broken trays, because she dropped the trays when she heard about the shoe.
Yep.
So she just drops everything and just kind of lollygags away.
She's like daydreaming. She's just like da-da-da.
And she's singing. And the stepmother sees this, and the stepmother's like, And the mice see the stepmother like having this mean look, and they're like, what is she? She's got something going on. The stepmother follows Cinderella all the way up to her tower. So we see Cinderella in her tower, and she's brushing her hair and just kind of singing, and the mice come in and they're trying to warn her. They're like, Cinderella, like, she's coming, like, look out. And as she's the mice are trying to warn her, she's like, just not paying attention. And then she's like, huh? And then realizes, oh, there's the stepmother taking the key out of the inside of the door because that's the only way it stays open. And then
locked in.
Locks her inside her room in the tower.
Yep.
So the Duke arrives at the chateau, and the mother goes downstairs and she tells her daughters that this is their last chance and they cannot fail her. And so the Duke knocks on, the Duke, and I don't know what the title of the little guy is.
I don't know either.
I know he handed out like all the notices before for the ball, and I know he like presented the Duke, but I don't know his title. But he knocks on the door and he presents the Duke, and the stepmother presents her daughters to the Duke, And the Duke looks at him and just cringes. And the girls fight over the slipper. Like, they're like, oh yeah, that's my slipper. And the other one's like, nope, that's mine. As this is happening, the mice are on the table next to the stepmother trying to figure out how to steal this key because it's in her pocket. Gus lowers Jacques into her pocket, and when he's in the pocket, he tries to get the key out, and they're like, no, abort. Jacques puts the key back in the pocket, and the stepmother puts her hand in the pocket, checks to see if it's there, drops it on Jacques' head, and then puts her hand on the outside of the pocket to tap it, and is tapping the key against Jacques' poor little head. So she knows the key's still there in her pocket. No problem there. So, and then she goes to offer the Duke tea. Gus is hiding in a teacup, almost pours hot tea on Gus. Thankfully, the Duke's
what is
like...
the Gus in the teacups? Jeez.
There's
He's like, I really want to be with a teacup all day, every day.
So, then you see Anastasia is trying on the shoe first. And it looks like, it's going to fit on her foot. And then they lift her foot out from under her dress. Yeah. And it only fits on half
She's
of
like,
it.
I knew it would fit.
And I knew it was my slipper. So by this point, the Duke is so exhausted from everything and traveling from house to house. This is the last house, I believe. He just falls asleep in the chair.
Yep.
So...
and the evil stepmother is like, don't wake him.
Yeah.
Be quiet. Can't you try even harder? And she's yelling at the other guy. Like,
Yeah.
they're trying to scheme and plot, like, get it
trying to figure out
before
how to
the
get
Duke
shoe
notices.
On. Yep. So then the mice get the key out of the stairs. They slide onto the floor. They get the key up the first set of stairs.
Oh my gosh.
And under a door. And then they have to get the key up the other set of stairs, which is not just a set of stairs, it's like a 4-story set of stairs to the tower. Mm-hmm. Which Gus is like, he's like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can go on.
I need more food.
So as they're trying to get the key up, all of a sudden the shoe goes to Drizella because the Duke wakes up and he's like, enough of this, try the next girl. So he tries Drizella. Drizella, guess what? Your feet are too big too. So Cinderella sees the mice right outside her door because, like, Jacques comes. Gus is still outside with the key, and then all of a sudden Lucifer is back. It traps Gus under yet another teacup. Why there's a random teacup up in the tower, or how a cat got a teacup up there, don't know, but he trapped him in the tower under a teacup again with the key. Jacques bites his tail. He jumps. Doesn't help. Gus is just kind of like a dud to the world, like, oh, teacup's off of me, I should quit, run. No,
he's scared.
So
poor little Gus. I love Gus.
Dumb. He's not the brightest.
He's so cute.
So then all the other mice are trying to, like, go at him with forks. Lucifer, like, takes his little hand, like, hits all the forks. Then they try to go after him with the candle, and he just blows the candle out. The birds are dropping plates, cups, saucers, everything on his head. Nothing. So then Cinderella goes to yell, and she's like, go get Bruno. Get Bruno. So the birds go all the way downstairs. They fall out the window, go downstairs to go get Bruno. Bruno's just like, whatever. And then the horse is like neighs and is like, go to the tower. Bruno goes to the tower and scares the crap out of Lucifer. As this is going on, Drizella squeezes her foot into the slipper, which I don't know how you can squeeze your foot like that into a shoe.
It makes me. It hurts. It looks like it hurts. It makes me feel very sad for my feet, even though it's not happening to them.
It's squeezed in there, and then all of a sudden it just pops off, and it goes flying. Thankfully, the Duke catches it. Bruno scares Lucifer out of the tower. Like, he falls from the tower. And then Gus is scared, clinging to the key. And they're like, listen, you need to, like, get the key in there. He finally gets the key. And the Duke has had enough, and he's like, okay, we're done. Obviously, the shoe does not fit anybody in this house. Are you the only ladies? And they're like, yes, we're the only ladies. And then all of a sudden, Cinderella starts coming down the stairs, and the girls and the mother are like, no, don't pay attention to her. She's just a servant. She's a nobody. She's nothing. And the Duke is like, I have my orders. The orders are every single maiden must try it on.
And that, like, back and forth between what's happening with Cinderella, what's happening with the Duke, what's happening with Cinderella, it, like, builds that tension of,
Yes.
like, is he going to be able to see Cinderella? Like, it's a good...
Yeah.
I like how they set that up.
So, the short little, I don't know his title dude, he's got a white powdered wig, looks like
He
a
looks a
doofus.
servant, whatever.
Whatever he is, he has a slipper on this pillow, and he goes to run to Cinderella for her to try it on. And the stepmother is like, I got my little cane, whatever, walking stick here. I'm going to stick it out and I'm going to trip you. So she trips him.
She's like, if my daughters can't get it, no one can get it.
He falls, the slipper launches off the pillow and crashes and breaks and shatters right in front of the Duke and Cinderella, and the Duke just starts crying.
Yeah, because he's in so much trouble if he goes back.
And so Cinderella's like, it's okay. And he's like, no, it really isn't. She's like, I have the other slipper. And the stepmother is just furious. And the Duke is so happy. He kisses the shoe and then puts it on her foot. And then all of a sudden you see Cinderella and the prince coming out of the castle. They were married. She's in a wedding dress. She loses her shoe for the third time. She turns back around to go get it, and the king helps her and puts it back on her foot. They get into a carriage, and there's the mice that are all dressed up, like, to the nines. They're throwing rice. Well, most of them are throwing rice. Gus is eating the rice.
Because he's hungry. He worked so
fat.
hard to get that key up the
They're
stairs.
all waving by. Cinderella looks out the window, and she's waving bye to everybody and all the little mice, and they lived happily ever after. The book closes with this page that says the end.
Ta-da! It's so good.
Fat little Gus.
I love Gus. So, some facts about this movie. At the time, Walt Disney Productions had suffered from losing connections to European film markets due to the outbreak of World War II, enduring some box office bombs like Pinocchio, Fantasia, and Bambi, all of which would later become more successful with several re-releases in theaters and on home video.
So the film was a massive critical and commercial success upon release and reinvigorated the Disney company when they were nearing bankruptcy after a loss of over $4 million from the failures of Pinocchio, Fantasia, and Bambi.
Ouch.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. So at the time, because of that $4 million in debt, they were on the verge of bankruptcy. To save money when animating the pumpkin coach, the animators drew the coach to seemingly float on the air so that they would not have to animate the turning wheels. Disney had previously used live action reference on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Pinocchio, and Fantasia, but as part of an effort to keep the production costs down again, the footage was used to check the plot, timing, and movement of the characters before animating it. By the end of its original run, it was the sixth highest grossing film in 1950, earning $4.15 million in distributor rentals. After 2 years in production, Cinderella was finally released on February 15th, 1950. It became the greatest box office success for the studio since the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, earning $8 million in gross rentals, helping reverse the studio's fortunes. The success of Cinderella allowed Disney to carry on producing films throughout the 1950s, by which the profits from the film's release, with the additional profits from record sales, music publishing, publications, and other merchandise, gave Disney the cash flow to finance a slate of productions, animated and live action, establish his own distribution company, enter television production, and begin building Disneyland during this decade, as well as developing the Florida project, later known as Walt Disney World. It received 3 Academy Award nominations, including one for Best Music for the original song of Bippity Boppity Boo. The castle that is at Disney World is duplicated at the Magic Kingdom, and with Sleeping Beauty's castle at the center of Disneyland is the basis for one of the production's logos for Walt Disney's pictures. The Cinderella's castle in Disney World is exactly 189 feet tall. It is this Cinderella movie is the first Disney film in which all of Disney's 9 old men work together as directing animators. Betty Lou Gerson, an American actress, was the voice of the narrator at the beginning of the story.
Yeah, and for the German version, the original opening narration about Cinderella's past was read by Erica Gorner, who on a subsequent releases of the film beginning in 1992 was replaced with a new narration read by I'm going to assume Joachim, because I don't think that's what I think it is. I think it's Joachim Pacus.
Maybe, yeah.
And somehow explained how this is a Disney film coming from the U.S. and that Aschenputtel is called Cinderella over there, meaning here in the U.S., and the rest of the film is left completely intact in its original 1950 dub, though the original German narration has never been made available since.
That's crazy that they went to that much work to
just for the German one.
Just for Germany. It's so odd. Walt Disney hired actress Helen Stanley to perform the live-action reference for Cinderella. Before the artist began sketching, she would play the role of Cinderella in a particular scene, and artists would draw animated frames based on her movements. So that's when earlier I talked about seeing the sponge scene in the live action. There's a picture of her doing that. It's pretty cool. She later did the same kind of work for the characters of Princess Aurora in Sleeping Beauty and Anita Radcliffe in 101 Dalmatians.
So according to Mark Davis, one of the directing animators of Cinderella, at least 90% of this movie was done in live action model before animation.
Yeah, and they did that to save costs so they weren't messing up.
Yeah. So dancer Ward Ellis was the live action model for Prince Charming. And Cinderella's carriage is actually a live-action model painted with white. It's painted white with black lines. And this was the first time that technique had actually been used.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, I can see how that would save money.
Yeah.
For sure. Eleanor Audley voiced Lady Tremaine and Maleficent, so both of them. Mary Alice O'Connor served as the live-action reference for the fairy godmother. The voice of Aunt Sarah from Lady and the Tramp is played by the same actress who played the voice of the fairy godmother in Cinderella. Originally, Disney intended for the fairy godmother to be very tall and regal, as that's his view of fairies, that they were tall and motherly figures, kind of like the Blue Fairy in Pinocchio. Mm-hmm. Unlike the human characters, though, the animal characters were animated without live-action references. Very different from Bambi.
And Dumbo.
And Dumbo, yeah. Gus' full name is Octavius, presumably after the Roman emperor. And the Roman emperor's name was Augustus, but that's what they called him, but his full name was Gaius Octavius Terminus, I think is how you say it. So it's kind of got the Gus in his nickname part and the Octavius in the real part, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and Gus is short for either Augustus or Gustavus.
Yeah. So, because when I was like, she's like, I'm going to name him Octavius. And they were like, we're going to call you Gus for short. I'm like,
that makes I'm like, that makes no sense at all. But, I mean, if it's after the Roman Emperor Augustus, then
Yeah, and his nickname was the Gus, which would be Gus's nickname, and the real name was Octavius, and Gus's real name was Octavius. That's correlation makes sense to me, but if you don't have that,
if you have no, like, a 5-year-old's never going to know that.
No. Can you imagine?
They're just going to be like, oh, Gus is short for Octavius, when that is not the fact. So every time they hear Octavius, they're going to think of Gus.
I mean, I don't think they're going to be hearing Octavius very often, but...
In school.
I have never heard a child named Octavius.
No, but, like, when going through school.
Just thinking that they could be calling people Gus.
Sure.
There is a mistake in the movie, a small one. Just before the stepmother locks Cinderella in her room, she asks Gus and Jock what they're warning her about. Cinderella's like, what's going on? As they're trying to tell her that the stepmother's coming up behind them. And as the stepmother takes out her key and is about to lock the door, Cinderella turns around and she says, "Oh no!" But her mouth literally doesn't move. It looks like a bad Japanese, Chinese, whatever, dubbed, where it's just an open mouth, but words are coming out. So I was doing some research about Cinderella and like what the original type of Cinderella was to compare and contrast. And there's a couple things I found out. So in France, it started out as a spoken story. But the first time it was written down could have been a disaster because of one small French word. So there's ver and ver, obviously sound alike. There's ver, V-E-R-R-E, which means glass, and ver, V-A-I-R, which means fur. So Cinderella could possibly have been wearing fur shoes by accident, which is hysterical.
I'm going to have to find the meme. There's a meme on this.
The apple bottom jeans.
Yeah.
Yep. I saw that one. That one's hilarious.
I have to put that in here. Like, insert right here.
Yes.
Right here.
Right here. There's a Vietnamese version of Cinderella called Tam and Cam. And the heroine chops up her stepsister, puts the body into a jar of food, sends it to her stepmother to eat.
Yum.
After the stepmother is finishing the food is when she discovers her daughter's skull at the bottom of the jar and promptly dies of shock.
Yummy.
And I did not read the rest of it. I have the link to all of the stories. I want to read them, but holy cow, what a different story.
Yum.
And then there's the Greek version of Cinderella, Rhodopis. I don't know how to say that. Rhodopis. She doesn't go to any party, but in fact, an eagle comes and steals her sandal and drops it into the king's lap. And that's why he goes after her to find her, because he, for some reason, is at awe with this sandal.
In one of the original Italian versions, apparently there's a few of them. In one of the original ones, the fairy godmother turns into a cat.
All these are so bizarre. So bizarre.
Yep. So.
The Grimm brothers version of Cinderella, the stepsisters cut off part of their feet to fit into the slippers, but the blood gives them away. And in the end, their eyes are pecked out by birds.
Gotta love it. Cinderella is considered one of the best American animated films ever made, as selected by the American Film Institute, and was inducted into the Library of Congress National Film Registry in 2018. Walt Disney said Cinderella was his favorite fairy tale because he saw himself in her shoes, since they both worked so hard and got rewarded for their work.
I really want a picture of Walt Disney in glass slippers now.
I'm sure it's out there.
It would be hysterical.
I'm sure there's a meme or something out there. The sequence where Cinderella's rags turn into a magical ball gown, that was animated by Mark Davis and was Walt Disney's favorite piece of animation to ever come out of the studio.
It's a beautiful scene.
It is. And the movie Enchanted, which is not very popular. I don't know why. It's a great movie. I love Enchanted. But there's a scene in Enchanted that very much resembles this.
Yes, there is.
Love Enchanted.
I'll have to watch it again. I watched it once. I was not a fan.
I love it. So, not only is the name of the prince never revealed, but he is nowhere in the film mentioned as Prince Charming.
Which blows my mind. Like, because it's such common knowledge, I feel like everyone's like,
Yeah.
oh, Cinderella and Prince Charming.
No, he is not once ever named. So, yeah, he's known as Prince Charming. But there's also some material that will show that his name is actually Henry. However, it's not confirmed nor denied anywhere.
I wonder where they got that name, or like how they thought.
Probably one of the other versions.
Oh, yeah, the 101 whatever versions there are of Cinderella. Possibly.
Eileen Woods beat out exactly 309 girls for the part of Cinderella.
Wow.
After some demo recordings of her singing, a few of the film's songs were presented to Walt. However, she had no idea that she was auditioning for the part until Disney contacted her. She initially just made the recordings for a few friends who sent them to Disney without telling her. She also revealed in an interview that Walt Disney is probably the first person to use double-tracked vocals, which is where the singer records herself singing both the melody and the harmonies, and the vocals were then mixed together to create the seamless effect.
Wow.
In 2003, Eileen was awarded a Disney Legends Award for her voice work on the film Cinderella. Dinah Shore and Deanna Durbin were considered for the role of Cinderella, but after Walt heard the recordings from Eileen Woods, Walt said, sorry, we're just going to go with Eileen, who had only one film credit before this film. When the film was first released on the Platinum Edition, DVD, and VHS, Cinderella's ball dress, which was the one the fairy godmother gave her, was recolored blue instead of the silver to match all the merchandise. Which I don't think I've ever seen that one.
No, I don't think so either.
When Walt had the resources to return to full-length animation in the late 1940s after the war, he was indecisive over whether they should produce Cinderella or Alice in Wonderland. He was which one to produce first. Walt decided, which is weird after we talk about like all the other movies, how he was very closely into the production of it. Walt decided, let's produce both of them at the same time with two full crews and see who not only finishes first, but let's see who could do a better job, creating a competition between Cinderella and Alice in Wonderland.
Wouldn't that be scary? You're in debt and you're going to supply two movies at the same time?
He's got a lot of trust in his crew. That's
apparently.
a lot of trust.
That's a lot of trust.
Animators.
That's a lot of like gamble, because there's no guarantee that either of those movies are going to do well.
Right.
So not only one could possibly fail, but two could possibly fail?
Yeah.
Holy cow. And they're so different. They're not like...
They're vastly different.
They're not the same where you could be using similar artists or similar...
No.
Like, that's crazy.
No, completely different.
Crazy.
So, a song called Dancing on a Cloud was cut from the film. Cinderella loses her shoe 3 times in this film, which we talked about when we were breaking it down. So the first is when she's delivering the breakfast trays on the stairs. She loses it, and Lucifer is trying to look under the cup, and he looks under the wrong cup because she turns around to get her shoe. The second is when she's running away from the prince at the ball, obviously the most famous. And the third is when she's walking down the steps after just marrying the prince, and the king helps her put her shoe back on.
I think she's got the wrong size shoe on.
Something's going on with that foot.
She either has really sweaty feet or she's got too big shoes on.
So bad. But it's all shoes. So it's like her flats, the glass slipper, and then like whatever she was wearing
Her
for
pump
her
or whatever for the, I think she's wearing the wrong size shoe.
So bad. So get ready for this one.
Oh boy.
The official royal proclamation on the castle gate wall reads the following.
Take a deep breath. Drink of water. Okay,
So-
ready? Go.
All loyal subjects of His Imperial Majesty are hereby notified by royal proclamation that in regard to a certain glass slipper, it is upon this day decreed that a quest is instituted throughout the length and breadth of our domain. The sole and express purpose of said quest is as follows, to wit, that every single maiden in our beloved kingdom shall try upon her foot this aforementioned slipper of glass, and should one be found whose foot shall properly fit said slipper, such maiden will be acclaimed the subject of this search and the one and only true love of His Royal Highness, our noble prince. And said Royal Highness will humbly request the hand of the said maiden in marriage to rule with him over all the land as royal princess and future queen.
Whew! They don't pay by the letter on that one, apparently.
No. Which the sisters were already out because the shoe had to properly fit.
Yeah,
It didn't say
well,
just fit, it has to properly fit.
Yeah, so they lost cause, but that is very detailed and long.
It's a long proclamation.
Yes, it is.
All the animal characters in Cinderella were originally supposed to be speaking parts, like they were all written to speak.
Gotcha.
The horse, Major, didn't know that was the horse's name at all. Had a song entitled Horse Sense, which, get this, the horse is a girl. She sang it with Bruno after Bruno was scolded for growling at Lucifer at the very beginning. Didn't know that was a girl. Didn't know that her name was Major. Why you would name a female Major? Don't know. No.
You can, but it doesn't make sense. Just like looking at the horse also has more masculine features, I feel, than female features. So.
Yeah, especially when looking at other horses throughout
Disney.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. This story takes place roughly in June.
How do you know that?
In the movie, the sun rises slightly before 6 a.m. And if this is in France, I will get there in a minute. It is an if. As it would within a few weeks of the summer solstice. Also, by this time, a typical pumpkin would have grown up to 20 to 40 pounds.
Who pays so much attention to this and who really cares? But it's cool information.
So Walt Disney turned for the first time to Tin Pan Alley songwriters to write the songs, and this would later become a recurring theme in Disney animation. Eileen Wood, remember her, suffered from Alzheimer's disease, and in the later years, she could not remember that she had ever played Cinderella, but her nurses did claim that she was very much comforted by the song "A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes."
That's sweet.
It is. All right, get ready for this one. I love this one. Although it is often assumed that Lucifer fell to his death from the tower after Bruno got rid of him when he was hiding Gus with the key, it is regularly shown and as being very much alive sometime later in various semi-official novelizations, storybook spin-offs, and other promotional materials that were made to provide epilogue to the characters after the movie ended. The logic of how he survived is never truly addressed directly. So here are some fan theories to take this over, which I love all of them. The one is just scientific facts. Cats, like falling cats, have proportionally improbable ability to fall from extreme heights and land standing without injury due to specialized muscular reflexes, which I learned this if any of you have watched the guy that did the glitter bomb. Mm-hmm. He tried to do during the whole quarantine, he put out a bird feeder because he was going to start bird watching in his backyard, and squirrels were eating them. So this provoked him to do like a month long, actually It was longer than that.
You were in there for a while,
he did a
so go
whole
ahead.
thing on squirrels. He made a squirrel. It was an obstacle course that if they could do all these obstacles and they had to do them in order, and they couldn't just climb the poles because he greased them up. But if they did all these in order, then they could have the nuts or
Like an
whatever.
American Warrior, but for squirrels.
And this was based.
Oh my
His obstacles.
goodness.
Some of them were based off of Ninja Warrior in Asia, Ninja Warrior here. What was the one with the big red balls? Wipeout.
Yeah, Wipeout.
Yeah, he had
okay.
so many things based off all those game shows. It's
gosh.
fantastic. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's fantastic. But he does explain how squirrels and cats can fall from various heights with no injury.
Yeah.
And it's what they do is they take their body and they spread them out as large as they can. And then right as they're going to land, they squeeze themselves back in for a landing. So when they kind of like lay flat, the perpetual motion it's slowing them
The
down.
air resistance is slowing them down. Got it.
So that's possible.
Yeah. Sounds plausible.
Not my favorite, but it's absolutely plausible.
Most
and
popular?
it's the most popular, and it's probably what happened.
That's right. Number one, scientific mumbo jumbo.
Most likely.
Okay.
Yes.
Number two.
Number two. Cats have 8 lives.
Okay.
So this was Lucifer's feline privilege, because he was a very privileged,
Oh, well,
cat.
yeah.
That he just used one of his 9 lives. No, maybe.
I'm going to say probably not.
Number 3. I think this is my favorite. Lucifer was protected from injury by his fat flesh, which provided an insulating cushion against any bone breakage when he hit the ground.
Yes.
Because
Everything.
he's
Yes.
fat.
Yes. I want to say
And
yes.
this one, they used this idea when dealing with 20th and 21st century cartoon portrayals of obese felines, which, if you don't know Garfield.
Yep.
Love it.
That's hysterical. I would say number one's mostly plausible. Number 3 is the best, and number 2 is just dumb.
Love it.
That's very interesting. Also, never realized that Lucifer was gonna die from the tower. Like, that never occurred to me.
It occurred that it was possible, but
It just, for me,
it wasn't a thought. It wasn't a thought, like an active thought.
Yeah, no.
That I had. It was just a thought like, oh, I wonder if he died, or I wonder if he survived that fall, because we don't ever see him in this film. So I mean,
I have no idea.
it wasn't an active thought.
No.
There was a Screen Directors Playhouse broadcast, which was a 30-minute radio adaptation of Cinderella on June 30th of 1950, with Verna Felton reprising her film role.
Cool.
Lucifer was modeled after animator Ward Kimball's cat, because animators were having so much trouble coming up with a very good design for this cat. And then Walt Disney saw Kimball's cat and was like, that's Lucifer. Once he seen his cat, he was like, yep, that's Lucifer. So I'm assuming that his
cat was
calico
mean?
cat was probably a little mean and very fat.
Yes, I would think so.
When auditioning for the role of Prince Charming, Mike Douglas was asked where he was from. And when he replied in his very Illinois accent that he was from Chicago, he was told that he was not going to do the speaking role. And so William Phillips was cast as Prince Charming while Douglas sang for the role.
Oh, poor Douglas.
Can't have that Illinois accent.
No, that's going to ruin everything.
The debate of the setting, and here's why I say it's possibly French. Here's the debate. It's problematic. A lot of people agree that it's French. However, there's a small amount of people who think it's Spanish.
What?
Because the family names all end in A. But as if that's not, enough. On top of Anastasia's head is what is called either like a pinita or something. And it's a headdress used in Spain, along with some of the formal attire that is also like the French furnishings and the Spanish furnishings are within the same time period and are very similar. So
That's
this could be a Spanish film.
That's crazy.
And I don't mean Spanish like Latina. I mean Spanish from actual Spain.
Yeah.
So this could be a Spain from Spain.
That's crazy.
This was the 7th Disney animated classic to have the 2006 Walt Disney Pictures logo with just Disney at the end of the movie on current releases. The video of the movie was released in 1988, which was decades after the movie was released. So it was released in 1950, but did not come out on VHS until 1988. In earlier drafts of the screenplay, the prince originally played a larger role and had more character development than what he ultimately received in the final version of the film.
Sounds like Snow White.
It does.
That happened in Snow White.
Yeah, it very much does. In one abandoned opening, the prince was shown hunting a deer, but at the end of the sequence, it was to be revealed that the prince and the deer were actually friends and they were playing a game. In another abandoned alternate ending, after the Duke discovered Cinderella's identity, she was shown being brought to the castle to be reintroduced to the prince, who is surprised to learn that Cinderella is actually a modest servant girl instead of the princess he thought she was.
Oh my gosh.
But the prince's feelings for her were too strong to be bothered by this, and he embraced her.
Well, that's nice.
The fairy godmother was to reappear and restore Cinderella's ball gown for the closing shot. But Walt cut the alternate ending because he felt that it was overlong and did not give the audience its payoff. But the scene would later be incorporated in the video game Kingdom Hearts: Birth by Sleep.
I want to play Kingdom Hearts now just so I can get more Disney.
I've never played it.
Pat likes it. I'm surprised he likes it because it would look like more of my game. But
Isn't that the one that he told you to play and he didn't tell you what any of the things were? And he's like, just go with it. Like, you'll figure it out. Didn't tell you any of the buttons.
No, that's my brother.
No, Pat did it when we were in Pat's room. He put on a video game. I thought it was Kingdom Hearts.
Maybe.
And he's like, oh, you'll figure it out. And you were like,
that usually happens.
pretty
to
sure
me.
no. And you're like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, just hit it. Just jump. And you're like, I'm trying to jump. Just jump.
It sounds probably
I'm pretty sure that was
accurate.
Kingdom Hearts.
Possibly. It's a possibility. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Find us on Facebook and Instagram.